The silence of the apartment was usually a comfort, a soft blanket after the relentless hum of the city. Tonight, however, it felt profoundly different. Alex had been staring at the blank television screen for what felt like an hour. The cool blue glow of his phone casting long, distorted shadows across the living room. It was just another Tuesday night, marked by another microwave dinner and another endless scroll through other people's meticulously curated lives. Alex wasn't lonely, not exactly, but the quiet could sometimes feel overwhelmingly expansive, stretching out into an uncomfortable void. He was, by all accounts, an ordinary guy pushing 30, working a job that paid the bills but certainly did not ignite the soul. His apartment, a cozy two-bedroom on the third floor, had always been his sanctuary. His little corner of predictable, unassuming peace. He yawned, stretching his arms high above his head, the joints in his shoulders popping softly in the stillness. It was time to call it a night. He reached for the remote, intending to power down the television, which he hadn't even bothered to turn on. But before his fingers could brush the cool plastic, the screen flickered to life. With a sudden jarring burst, it wasn't a channel, nor was it a menu. Instead, it displayed a static laced image, grainy and distorted, yet undeniably familiar. It was his living room, his very own couch, his coffee table, and even the half-eaten bowl of pasta he had left there just moments before. Alex frowned, a knot of confusion tightening in his stomach. Had he accidentally left it on a security camera feed? No, that was impossible. He didn't own any cameras, and the angle was all wrong, too wide, too encompassing, as if captured by a hidden lens tucked into the corner of the ceiling, observing everything. He picked up the remote, pressing the power button again, then the channel button, then volume. Nothing. The strange image remained, stubbornly fixed on the screen. It was his living room, bathed in the dim, familiar light of the street lamp outside his window. Then he saw himself. He was sitting on the couch, just as he had been a moment ago, phone still in hand. But something was profoundly off. The Alex on screen was slightly ahead of him. A fraction of a moment in the future, he watched his on-screen self yawn, stretch, and then reach for the remote. A cold shiver traced its way down his spine, prickling his skin. This wasn't a recording, he realized with a jolt. This was live, but it was also the future. His future, a few seconds, perhaps a minute ahead of his present reality. The implication was staggering, almost too much to comprehend. He dropped the remote, the plastic clattering loudly against the hardwood floor, the sound echoing in the sudden, terrifying silence. His heart began to thump a frantic rhythm against his ribs, a drumbeat of rising panic. He stood up slowly, cautiously, his eyes glued to the screen. On the broadcast, his on-screen self was also standing. A look of bewildered horror etched onto his face. Alex walked towards the television, and on the screen, his doppelganger mirrored the movement. A fraction of a second before he actually did it, it was like watching a terrifying, real-time echo, a shadow of his own imminent actions. He had to test it, he had to know. He picked up the remote from the floor, a mundane action, yet a desperate attempt to ground himself in reality, to prove this impossible vision false. On the screen, his hand reached down, picked up the remote, and then in his own reality, he felt the cool plastic against his palm. The broadcast was undeniably showing him the immediate future. The thought was so absurd, so utterly impossible, that a hysterical, choked laugh bubbled up in his throat, quickly stifled by a rising tide of pure, unadulterated fear. His apartment, his sanctuary, had become a stage, and he, Alex, was the unwilling actor in a play whose script was being written just moments before he spoke his lines. He backed away from the screen, bumping clumsily into the coffee table. The pasta bowl wobbled precariously on its edge. On the television, his on-screen self stumbled back, knocking the bowl, sending it crashing to the floor, shards of ceramic scattering across the rug. Alex froze, his breath catching in his throat. The bowl was still on the table in his reality. He stared at it, then at the screen, then back at the bowl. He had to stop it, he had to break the loop. He lunged forward, grabbing the bowl just as his on-screen self did the same. He caught it, his fingers brushing the rim. It didn't fall. He looked at the screen, a surge of adrenaline coursing through him, a fleeting moment of triumph. But the screen still showed the bowl on the floor. Shards of ceramic scattered across the rug. His on-screen self was staring at the mess, a look of utter despair on his face, a mirror of the hopelessness that was now beginning to consume Alex. No, it wasn't a loop he could break. It was a fixed path. The broadcast wasn't showing a future, it was showing the future. His future, and it was already decided. A cold dread began to seep into his bones, colder than any winter night, chilling him to his very core. He was trapped, not by walls, but by time itself. Every action he took, every thought that flickered through his mind, was already playing out on that cursed screen. He was a puppet, and the strings were invisible, pulled by an unseen hand from a few minutes ahead. His agency, his free will, had been utterly stripped away. He sank onto the couch, his eyes wide, fixed on the television. On the screen, his doppelganger was also sinking onto the couch, head in hands, a posture of complete resignation. He watched himself, a silent, terrifying premonition of his own despair. What was the point? If everything was already set, if every choice was merely an echo of a predetermined path, what was the point of anything at all? The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered and terrifying. Then, the image on the screen shifted. The camera angle remained the same, but the focus sharpened, pulling away from his slumped figure on the couch. It panned slowly, deliberately, towards the front door. Alex's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of terror. He didn't want to see this, he didn't want to know what was coming next, but he was powerless to avert his gaze. On the screen, the doorknob slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to turn. A shadow, long and distorted, stretched across the hallway floor. Cast by something unseen from beyond the door, then a figure, tall, indistinct, cloaked in shadow, it slipped through the barely ajar door. It moved with an unnatural grace, a silent predator entering its prey's lair. It was inside, in his apartment, on the screen. A sharp, insistent rap, rap, rap echoed through his real apartment. Alex gasped, a strangled sound caught in his throat. The knocking. It was real. It was happening, just as the broadcast had shown. His eyes darted from the screen to his actual front door. The knocking came again, louder this time, more urgent. It wasn't a friendly knock. It was a demand, an ominous summons that chilled him to the bone. Panic, raw and visceral, seized him. He had to move. He had to hide. He had to escape. His mind raced, a whirlwind of impossible options. The window, too high. The back door, locked, and the figure was already at the front. He needed to get out, to defy this horrifying prophecy, to somehow break free from the invisible chains of his predetermined future. He scrambled off the couch, his legs unsteady, adrenaline making his movements jerky and uncoordinated. He had to try. He had to break free. He glanced at the screen. One last time, a desperate, silent plea for a different outcome, for any glimmer of hope. But the broadcast had already moved on. On the screen, he saw himself. Not scrambling, not running, not escaping. He was on the floor, by the front door, a dark shape looming over him. His face was turned away, but the posture, The stillness spoke volumes. He was caught already. The broadcast showed him already subdued, already helpless, the struggle already over, a chilling testament to the futility of his efforts. The image held, a chilling tableau of his inevitable defeat. There was no escape. There was never going to be an escape. The future wasn't just predicted, it was absolute. The knocking at his real door stopped. A soft click, then the slow, deliberate creak of hinges. A shadow fell across his living room floor, just as it had on the screen, long and menacing. The air grew cold, heavy with an unseen presence, a palpable sense of dread. Alex stood frozen, his eyes wide, fixed on the doorway, unable to move, unable to breathe. The broadcast had shown him his end, and he was utterly powerless to change it. The figure from the screen was now here in his apartment, in his reality, and he was already caught. This chilling narrative, while fictional, forces us to confront profound questions about the nature of time, destiny, and human agency. If such a device existed, a television broadcasting our immediate future, what would it truly mean for our lives? Would it liberate us from uncertainty, or would it imprison us in a cage of predetermined events? The concept of a fixed future where every action is merely a reenactment of what has already been seen challenges the very foundation of free will. We pride ourselves on our ability to make choices, to shape our destinies, to learn from our mistakes and strive for better outcomes. But if our future is already playing out on a screen, even a few seconds ahead, then our choices become illusions, our struggles meaningless, and our hopes nothing more than a cruel trick of the mind. The psychological toll of such knowledge would be immense. Imagine the despair of knowing your efforts are futile, that every attempt to alter your path only leads you back to the very outcome you sought to avoid. It would strip away motivation, ambition, and perhaps the very essence of what it means to be human. Philosophers and scientists have long debated determinism versus free will. Determinism suggests that all events, including human actions, are ultimately determined by causes external to the will. Free will, conversely, posits that we have the power to make genuine choices. Alex's experience in this hypothetical scenario is a stark, terrifying demonstration of absolute determinism. It suggests that the universe operates on a script, and we are merely actors performing our roles without deviation. Furthermore, the existence of such a device raises questions about causality. Does seeing the future cause it to happen? Or does it merely reveal what was always going to happen? In Alex's case, his attempts to prevent the pasta bowl from falling were, in a twisted way, part of the sequence that led to its fall on the screen. This creates a paradox, a self-fulfilling prophecy where the knowledge of the future becomes an integral part of its unfolding. The implications extend far beyond individual despair. How would society function if everyone knew their future, or even just moments of it? Would law and order collapse if accountability became a moot point? Would ambition wither if success or failure were already broadcast? The very fabric of human interaction, built on anticipation, surprise, and the consequences of choice, would unravel. While this story is a work of fiction, it serves as a powerful thought experiment, probing the deepest anxieties about control and the unknown. It reminds us that perhaps the greatest gift we possess is the uncertainty of tomorrow, the belief that our actions today truly matter, and the freedom to write our own story, one moment at a time, without a pre-written script playing out before our eyes. The terrifying truth for Alex was that his story was already written, and he was merely living out the final, inescapable act.